the top quality education for these kids, but to do it in a way that is deeply rooted in Cree culture.
Tonight, the federal government sanctions more control over education by 4 Cree First Nations in Alberta. And who brought home the trophies from the Indigenous Music Awards. Good evening. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Dennis Ward. The battle between the provinces of British Columbia and Alberta over the proposed Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion continues to brew. Today, BC filed a lawsuit against Alberta over legislation it's working on that could cut off oil and gas supplies to BC. Alberta Premier Rachel Notley skipped the Western Premier's meetings in Yellowknife to focus on Kinder Morgan's pipeline. The company says it will make a decision on the future of the project by May 31st. Notley says her government is still ironing out the details of Bill 12, a bill that would provide the tools necessary to cut the oil and gas supply off to BC.
It's very interesting. On one hand, they don't want our oil, and on the other hand, they're suing us to give them our oil. So that happened. But nonetheless, what I would also suggest is that it's probably premature.
The 4 nations that make up the Musqueam community in Alberta will soon be given complete control over their school systems, from hiring teachers to providing the curriculum. APTN's Chris Stewart was there for the announcement.
Hundreds gathered in Musqueam to hear the details of the announcement. Starting this fall, the federal government is giving the 4 nations of Musqueam full control over their schools. The 4 nations, Samson Cree Nation, Louisville Tribe, Ermineskin Cree Nation, and Montana First Nation, have 11 schools and 2,300 students. The intention is to make the Cree culture the backbone of the curriculum, to hire within as much as possible.
And to be able to get the top quality education for these kids, but to do it in a way that is deeply rooted in Cree culture, where these students are going to learn their language, are going to learn their culture and their ways, and it will really have a transformative effect.
Samson Cree Nation Chief Vernon Saddleback told the crowd that the status quo was not good enough. Too many kids were simply not going to school.
You know, and the numbers for us shocked us. It's like, it really shocked us. I think we had like, what, about 3,800 kids under the age of 18, and we could only find 1,800 of them. You know, we were lose about 42% back then of kids were not going to school from Samson. We had no clue where they were, you know, no clue.
To the chiefs,
AFN National Chief Perry Belligar applauded the agreement and believes that this is a good move towards reconciliation.
Because in spite of what they tried to do to our peoples via that genocide from the residential schools, to make us feel bad about being Indians, in spite of that, and in spite of the Control of that Indian Act, we still say we're still here now, and it's the next 150 years that's going to be a better and brighter future, because you're seeing Indian control of Indian education, and it's those children and grandchildren that will write that story in a good way.
Louisville Tribe Chief Irvin Bull wants youth to learn here and stay in the community. He says jobs will be available.
We have a health center here that has over 120 staff. We want to get more of our young people in the field of science. In education, we have 11 schools. You know, how many teaching positions are there? We encourage our post-secondary students to go for those areas, you know, so they can come back and we can teach our own.
The Musqueam Education School Commission will oversee all 11 schools beginning this upcoming school year. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Musqueam, Alberta.
And we would like to hear what you have to say about this or any other story. Here's how to contact us. Send an email to news@aptn.ca, like our APTN National News Facebook page. Follow us on Twitter @APTN News, or go to our website, aptnnews.ca. Residents of 2 First Nations in Manitoba have been evacuated as wildfires started getting a little too close for comfort over the Victoria Day long weekend. About 275 people from the Sepatwayak Cree Nation south of the Paw have been forced from their homes. They will be in the Paw and Swan River for the time being. and about 400 Anishinaabe people from Keenan-Jashtigan First Nation had to be evacuated as well. Most of them are in Winnipeg until it's safe to return. Many areas in British Columbia have been dealing with severe flooding. Milder temperatures over the long weekend gave some communities much needed relief. Some evacuation orders have now been lifted, but Cree First Nation located along the Fraser River is still on alert. APTN's Lori Hamlin reports.
It didn't take long for Cree First Nation to jump into action when warned of serious flooding to their 3 communities. They're situated along the Fraser River and not protected by dikes. The nation is faced with high waters every year, but not since 2012 have they had to sandbag and build berms.
High water isn't something that's new to us. It's been here with us for thousands of years.
Warm weather, melting unusually high snowpack, has caused waterways to rise all over southern and central BC. Chief Grace Cunningham, who's only been chief since April, says she entered office prepared to deal with some flooding, but not emergency evacuation alerts. Luckily, previous leaderships left well-documented information behind to help her prepare.
I would be lying if I said that I wasn't worried. This is my first experience in being part of an emergency operations center, and it's been a lot of learning.
But the chief's worries have been put to rest. Last Wednesday, she put out a call for volunteers to help protect her community, and almost 500 people answered.
We have received a tremendous amount of support from our community, from other nations, and from school districts and some of our local leaders. It's been an amazing sense of unity. It was amazing to see our little babies out there. We literally had one of our youngest members who was participating in the sandbagging all the way up to our elders and out there doing as much as they can.
Colleen Pierre, who coordinated the volunteers, says 40,000 sandbags were filled over 4 days.
There was actually elders that participated in not only the sandbag, holding the bag while the sand was being filled, and then we had some more, if it was taking a strain on their back, they had the liberty of tying up and setting them aside so as they donating their trucks, their flatbed trucks, you name it.
But these efforts are just a temporary solution. The chief says permanent dikes need to be built.
It's my understanding that conversations with the federal government have begun. I can confirm that those conversations have been stalled for a really long time. So now is the time that the federal government needs to come to the table with us so that we can put together and devise a plan that is sustainable for our nation so that we don't have to endure this every single year.
Catesie's evacuation alerts still remain in effect, as the Fraser River may see a second rise within the next week. Lori Hamlin, APTN National News, Pitt Meadows.
16 young people from Sandy Lake First Nation took to the streets this weekend in Thunder Bay and made quite an impression. More on that after the break. Here's a look at Wednesday's weather forecast starting on the East Coast. Rain and 18 in Fredericton, a soggy 16 in Halifax. 5 above for Happy Valley Goose Bay, +1 in Nain and LeGrand. Sunny and 12 in Saguenay, +8 under the sun in Chibougamau. Sunny skies across southern Ontario, 23 in Windsor and Ottawa, 27 in Toronto. 19 in Wawa and Thunder Bay, 27 in Sioux Lookout. A hot day for northern Manitoba, 19 above in Churchill, 29 in Flin Flon and Nepaw. Even warmer to the south, 31 in Dauphin and Winnipeg. A cloudy, warm day in much of Saskatchewan, 30 in Yorkton, 28 in North Battleford, 30 in La Ronge, 29 in Buffalo Narrows and Meadow Lake. Welcome back. A running club from Sandy Lake First Nation is making impressions in Thunder Bay. 16 young people ran in the city's annual Firefighters 10-mile road race over the long weekend. Willow Fiddler was there and brings us this story.
When Ralph Bekentis was diagnosed with diabetes 20 years ago, he knew he had to get in shape.
Walking wasn't good enough. Like I could walk for 3 hours and it wasn't helping my health any. So we started running.
The high school guidance counselor also knew he wasn't the only one who could benefit from an active lifestyle.
Then I also was looking at all the kids in Sandy Lake. We had the third highest diabetes population in all of Canada. So because of that, we decided to start running with kids. And it's just been blooming.
Today, the Sandy Lake Running Club has about 60 youth, some as young as kindergarten age. They train 3 times a week and fundraise to compete in the annual 10-mile road race in Thunder Bay. 17-year-old Brianna Goodman said she started running so she could travel to the city.
First, it was last year. I ran because I wanted to come out here. So yeah, and then that's how I started.
Barb Rickards is an organizer with the 10-mile road race. She said Bekentis and his running club have made quite the impression over the years.
He has 60 runners that are vying for positions. It's not like there's only 5 or 6 that want to come and he brings them. They have to compete, they have to show their worthiness, and they also have to fundraise.
Goodman said the fundraising and training is hard work, but worth it.
It was hectic. We ran in everything, snow, the hotness, the rain, everything. We run in everything.
15-year-old Rashawn Harper started running to get in shape for hockey, but said there were other benefits.
I like the view. I like working out my legs, and it's fun.
16 runners and chaperones came out this year to compete in the individual and relay team categories. They were also recognized for their efforts.
And we understand it costs over $18,000 for them to bring their 20 people to Thunder Bay.
To help with the costs, race organizers raised and donated $1,300 to help with the travel expenses. Rickards said they will continue to support them in coming years.
Who better than the runners from Sandy Lake? And they have proven themselves to be so respectful, so athletic, and so committed.
But for the youth, it's all about the satisfaction of crossing that finish line.
Pretty proud of myself. Yeah.
Bekentis said he hopes to take 5 runners to the Cayman Islands for their next race. Willow Fiddler, APTN National News, Thunder Bay.
Congrats to the Sandy Lake team. Now to a newly formed all-Indigenous team in southern Saskatchewan that's making waves in tournaments. And they're getting a bit of a fan base in the process. Cree First Nations introduces us to this successful and hardworking team.
For 15-year-old McKenna Worm from Kwakatus First Nation, volleyball is a family tradition.
My sisters, growing up, I'd always go watch them play, and my parents, they used to play too.
And now the family watches her. Worm is the captain of the newly formed 15U Girls East Central Thunder. The all-Indigenous team trains out of the local school gym on Standing Buffalo, Dakota Nation. Tava DeLorme from Carry the Kettle says juggling school and volleyball keeps her busy.
All of us are from different reserves, and so we all have to drive here, so it's about an hour for each of us, so every 3 times a week usually.
Recently, the East Central Thunder placed second in provincials for Tier 1, Division 1 in their very first year together. Head coach Farron McKay says hard work along with dedication to the sport got them a place in the top 3.
Our first SAS Cup we took 3rd, our second SAS Cup we took 2nd, and our third Cup SAS Cup, we took 2nd again. They said, as long as you give me an effort, I will get you guys there. Just try, more or less, right, and put in the work.
McKay says he sees Indigenous athletes being left out of sports in Saskatchewan due to what he calls favoritism and lack of finances. That is why he felt compelled to form this team.
We have a lot of good First Nations athletes out there, but in other eyes, we have to work that much harder to get accepted. We do have athletes that if you give us a chance, we can excel.
And with their recent victory, they now have their eyes set on nationals in Alberta.
It's really exciting just knowing that we're playing as a team and going to nationals for the first time for most of us. I hope we do well. Doesn't really matter. I just want to be on the court and playing.
If they want to play college or university, this could possibly get them there. And with all the right training, and it just shows you that anything's possible.
So whether it's a serve or a spike or even just cheering on their teammates, East Central Thunder is a team to look out for. Cree First Nations, CTV News, Standing Buffalo, Dakota Nation.
Well, sometimes it takes a lot of teamwork to be successful in places other than the gymnasium. As CTV's Randy Steneman reports, a good coach or a good chef doesn't need to mince words to get the most out of his students.
At first glance, it could be the kitchen in many restaurants.
There you go. Thank you.
But it's actually a classroom at Kitchener's Grand River Collegiate. And the teacher...
Did you salt it? Salt, please.
...is in reality Chef Rick Powless.
In this program, when they're doing hands-on, it's incredible to see the work that they can produce.
Making food is hard, and it takes specific skills that you need to perfect it.
I really like the course. I'm going to take it again. I'm coming back for another semester just for it.
Tablespoon into each bowl so that when we're serving it, we've got that, okay?
Born and raised in London, Powless now lives in Six Nations. His daily commute to Grand River is a 2.5-hour round trip.
I wanted to give back what I had. I'd been given abilities and skill sets from my chefs and my mentors.
Different cutting techniques and cooking methods. And it helps here and at home.
You'll get better, you'll get faster.
Cooking professionally can be stressful. Standards are high, and Powless does not mince words here.
Would you eat that in a restaurant? I would. Then don't serve it to our customers. I can ask my students pretty much to do anything in the kitchen, and they're willing to get into the kitchen, get dirty, do work. They want to be productive.
He's learn. So when you go home and you have a family in the future, you can cook for them.
That one should be good.
Giving his students an appetite to learn.
We know that he wants the best for us. It's that makes us even better at the job that we're doing.
But once you see someone eating it in front of you and they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. How'd you do this? It's it's all worth it.
We can add this to the pasta today.
This week's local hero.
He's a good role model. He's a great teacher.
It doesn't get any better than this. It really doesn't. Because remember, plating is everything.
Randy Steinman, CTV News, Kitchener.
Well, there was little to celebrate about the Winnipeg Jets over the weekend, but there were still some major events in the city. An international powwow and the Indigenous Music Awards were certainly highlights. We'll have that story coming up. Here's the rest of Wednesday's weather forecast, picking back up in northern Alberta. 30 in Fort Chipewyan, Peace River, and Grand Prairie. 29 in Edmonton, 28 in Medicine Hat. Over to British Columbia, 21 in Victoria and Vancouver, 28 in Penticton. A cloudy day with a high of 29 in Fort St. John, 27 in Prince George. Much cooler in the Yukon, rain, and 6 in Rock River. Over to NWT, where the warm temps return, 23 in Fort Simpson. Much different story in the northern part of the territory, -2 in Saxe Harbor. In Nunavut, 5 above in Arviette, -1 in Chesterfield, +3 in Baker Lake, -2 on Wednesday in Iqaluit and Pangerton. Welcome back. Winnipeg played host to the 13th Manitowabe Festival over the weekend. The event celebrates Indigenous arts, culture, and music. The Indigenous Music Awards and the International Powwow are just part of the festival. Ashley Branson has the recap.
150 years that our people died.
The Indigenous Music Awards were nothing short of a celebration. From blues
Almost lost my mind. Anytime you come around
to pop,
we don't have to try.
To traditional music.
Until the detonation and devastation, until the heavens my detonation, I'm levitating till my head is aching.
The big winners at this year's event was Superman, who won Best Pop, Hip Hop Album, and Best Producer and Engineer. Buffy St. Marie also took home 2 awards for Best Folk Album and Best Music Video. The ceremony ended with a tribute to 70s rocker Pat Vegas of Redbone. His son, PJ Vasquez Vegas, accepted the Lifetime Achievement Award and closed out the show with Redbone's classic Come and Get Your Love on behalf of his father. The Indigenous Marketplace and Trade Show is a must-see at the festival. From fashion to artwork, artists from across North America display their creations. 17-year-old Emily McKinney was one of them.
I own a business that is Anishinaabe Bimishmo that manufactures jingle dress cones.
She says she started the business because she had a hard time finding jingles to make her own dress. Since January 2017, McKinney says her business has taken off internationally.
We've had people buying in stores from BC all the way to Nova Scotia and all the way down to San Diego. And on top of that, we've had people ordering from the UK and France.
The International Powwow competition brings over 800 dancers. Ariana Scott has been dancing for 8 years. She took part in the dancing competition under the junior adults category.
I like to dance jingle because it's a healing dance, and for me that inspired me.
The one thing she's excited for is to spend time with her friends and family.
I've made lots of friends through this powwow too that I still keep in contact with, from past years.
The main objective of this year's event was to bring everyone together and unite as one. It seems that goal was accomplished. Ashley Branson, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
What a weekend. When your friend is in trouble, you step up and help. That's a motto that rings true no matter if you are a human or a dog. Security camera at an Arizona home captured a pool rescue between two dogs, Smokey and Remus. Smokey is the one in the water, and Remus is the one who jumps in the pool and eventually pushes his friend to safety. Both dogs got out of the pool without harm. Pretty cool. That is your APTN National News for this Tuesday. Stick around. The Laughing Drum with Tim Fontaine is up next. For news anytime, visit our website, aptnnews.ca. And don't forget to join us live tomorrow at 2 p.m. Central Time for In Focus. We'll be discussing the Assembly of First Nations and the upcoming vote in July for National Chief. I'm Dennis Ward. Have a great night. We'll see you back here tomorrow.